You're listening to The Voluntary Life, where you can hear ideas for finding freedom in an unfree world. Visit thevoluntarylife.com to connect with the show and hear all past episodes. Here's your host, Jake.
Hi, it's Jake here. Welcome to The Voluntary Life. This is an episode about productivity. I want to share with you the most useful journaling techniques that I know for productivity. I find keeping a journaling practice incredibly helpful, not just for productivity, but also for self-knowledge and just being conscious in life generally. But it is also very helpful for productivity. And there are certain journaling techniques that I have found especially useful in terms of helping my productivity. Productivity is an absolutely core challenge for anybody who wants to take responsibility for their own lives. If you want to become an entrepreneur, start your own business, or even if you work for somebody else, but you have a vision for your own life, for the things that you want to achieve in life, and you want to make it happen, you have to take responsibility for deciding what to do. And anything that you can use as a tool or a technique to help you in working out what to do, what actions to take, what projects to work on, what the next step should be, any tool that helps with that is going to help you moving towards your vision. Ultimately, productivity just means moving towards your goals. And if you want to create a life of your choosing, then you want to be productive in moving towards your goals and your vision for your life. And journaling is really helpful with that. So I'm going to share with you the most useful techniques that I've found in helping my productivity that relate to journaling. Before we do that, I just want to say a big thank you to Matthias, my new patron on Patreon. This episode is being brought to you because of the support of people like Matthias. And if you'd like to help support the show too, you can find out more at my website, thevoluntarylife.com, or directly on my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/thevoluntarylife. And if you prefer to use cryptocurrency, you can also support me on Bitbacker. More information on my website. So let's get into journaling techniques for productivity. First of all, I'm going to presuppose that you do write down your task lists for things that you want to get done. Lots of people don't do this, but if you're listening to my podcast, you've probably heard me talking about productivity on previous episodes, and you know that I'm really into building up a system for getting things done. And at the core of that system has to be writing down your actions, writing down your tasks. And in a way, that is a kind of journaling too. So if you don't yet do that, I recommend that you listen to the episode that I did on task management, and I'll put a link in the show notes, because that's absolutely vital. So let's start from the assumption that you're already writing down task lists, which, as I said, is a kind of journaling. Well, the first journaling technique that I want to tell you about that I find really helpful actually relates to having a task list, and that is writing down a list of tasks that you completed today. Now, the way that you do this is going to depend on what kind of productivity system that you use. And if you are using a task management application, you may well be able to generate this list automatically, which is what I do. So I'll just explain how I do this, and then I'll talk about some other ways that you might like to do it. So I use a task management application called OmniFocus. And as I'm going through my day, I tick off actions that I've put into OmniFocus as I complete tasks. And then at the end of the day, I have created a script which takes all of the completed actions that I've done in OmniFocus and exports them as a text file into my journaling application. So what that means is every day I've got a list of what I completed that day, and I'm able to see what did I do yesterday. And at the end of the day, I can also very easily see what did I do today. The reason this is so beneficial is because basically it's just very motivational. As you're working through the day and you're just trying to get as much done as possible, it can often feel like you're not really making any progress because you're just constantly facing the next task and the next task. Having a list of everything that you've done is very motivational. It's also really helpful in terms of reflection. So I use the list of tasks completed. I actually have another script which I run each week when I'm doing my weekly review, and that script creates a new note in Evernote for me with a list of all the actions that I've completed in the week just gone by, organized by project. And I look at this when I'm planning my week ahead to work out what I'm going to do next. So it's a way of me just getting an overview. This is what I've done in the previous week. This is all the things that I've finished and worked on. And that's often a prompt for thinking. That brings up ideas for me about other things that I am working on and things that I need to do. And sometimes it makes me consider, why am I working on this, and is this really going in the right direction, and so forth. So it's very good for reflection. And another nice advantage of this journaling technique is that it's kind of a time capsule message to your future self about what you have been doing. I've now been saving a list of all my tasks completed for over 10 years. It's not always been in exactly the same way. I'm now using OmniFocus and Apple Script to export the script into a journaling app. Previously, I used some different applications, but the point is, I've got a journal going back over 10 years, which records what I was working on every day. And this isn't exactly helpful for productivity, but it's just kind of nice. If you have a journaling app that has a feature like on this day, where it shows you what you did in years gone by on any particular day. If it's the 24th of April, for example, then it'll show you what you were doing on the 24th of April 10 years ago, if you recorded an entry in your journal on that day. And that's kind of nice, because I can see, oh, this is what I was working on. These are the projects that I had, and this is what I was doing. And that can sometimes promote thought as well. That can be a useful reflection tool. But that's just an added bonus. Now, as I said, the way that I do this is highly automated. There are lots of other ways that you could do it. If you prefer to use simply pen and paper, then if you make a list of tasks for the day and tick them off as you do them, at the end of the day, that list of ticked off things is basically your completed task list. And you can just do it manually with pen and paper if you prefer. I think it's really helpful to automate this process, just because it makes everything way more efficient. And it also means that you can do things like organize your report of tasks completed by project. So you don't have just like a random list in the order of things that you did them. You can have everything neatly organized into projects and sub-projects, and make it much more readable if you automate it. Obviously, you need a little bit of technical knowledge to do that. For those of you who are interested, very briefly, the technical side of the way that I'm doing it is I use OmniFocus, and I have an Apple script that queries OmniFocus for tasks completed today and saves the output into a text file in Markdown format. And then I import that Markdown text file into a journaling app called Day One, which can read Markdown and which is nicely formatted and looks great. So that's the way that I'm doing it. But as I said, you can just do this on paper. If you use a different task application, then you'll probably find there's a way of generating a list of tasks completed today, because this is something a lot of people want to do. So have a look around, Google your particular task management app and export list of tasks completed today or something like that, and see if you can find a way of doing this if it isn't already built into the application. For many applications, this is such an obvious benefit that task management apps tend to make this quite easy. For some reason, OmniFocus doesn't make it easy, and I've had to create a script for myself to do it. But depending on what app you're using, you may find other ways of doing this. However you choose to do it, it's a very useful journaling tool. Write down what you did today. It will help you stay motivated. It will prompt you to additional thoughts, and it can be a nice thing to see in the future, just to reflect on what you're doing in different stages of your life. All right, the next journaling technique that I'm going to talk about that is really helpful for productivity is one called the core dump. I've talked about this before on previous episodes about productivity. It's an idea that comes from David Allen's Getting Things Done approach to productivity. And the way that he describes it is as part of a weekly review. So he suggests that once a week, you should just sit down with a blank piece of paper and just write down everything that's on your mind without organizing it, without censoring yourself, and without trying to make it all neat or anything. Just get it out of your head. Get everything out of your head. And the idea of this is, first of all, you get it all down on paper, and then you can look through what you've written down and think, okay, what's this? Is this an action? Is this a project? Is this an idea for someday maybe in the future? And you can then go through and process it afterwards. But first of all, the helpful tool is just getting things out of your head. And this is fundamentally a journaling technique. What David Allen was talking about was writing it all down, and that's journaling. And I recommend that you do this every day. If you journal every day, then I find it a very helpful thing to do, just to get things out of my head. So the way that this works for me is, If I journal in a journaling application, if I'm writing down thoughts about whatever is on my mind in a day, I'll be writing in English sentences and thinking about something that's on my mind. But at the bottom of the journal entry, I will make a little section with a line break and with the words core dump. I've actually got a keyboard shortcut that does that automatically for me. It creates a little section at the bottom of the page, so to speak. And underneath there, any time that I'm in the middle of a sentence and I just remember, oh, I've got to do this, or here's something else that I'm thinking about, I just put that in this section of my journal entry that I call core dump. And it's very much the same technique that David Allen was talking about. It's getting things out of your head. So at the end of your journaling, you can then go down and look at all the stuff that you wrote at the bottom. And some of those things you may find are actions that you can copy into your to-do list for today, your task management application. Or you may find that they are new projects, or someday maybe projects for the future. So this is a way of capturing things. And as I said, David Allen recommends that you do this once a week. I do it daily, and I find it quite helpful. The last journaling technique that I'll talk about today that I find really helpful for productivity is my incredibly simple week plan. I picked this idea up from a productivity book, and I've forgotten which one it was. It's Not Getting Things Done. Anyway, I got this idea from somewhere, but it's a very simple plan for the week ahead. And the idea is that you write down the 3 most important things that you did last week, the 3 most important decisions that you made last week, and then for the week ahead, the 3 most important things that you want to get done. I don't always have 3 important decisions that I can think of that I need to make in the week ahead, but you can always think of 3 things that you need to get done in the week ahead. And I find this a very helpful technique in journaling for kind of cutting through the noise and reminding myself of what the most important things are to me, what I really want to move forward with in life. I have a lot of actions in a lot of different projects, and it's quite easy to get lost in the detail of all the interesting things that I could be doing. But there are also things that I really want to move forward with in life, things I want to change about my life or get better at or move forward with. And this is a way of reminding myself what is most important and making sure that I'm actually moving forward on the most important things. I have talked about this technique on previous episodes and bonus episodes. And if you are a patron of the Voluntary Life, you can also get the templates that I use for my week plan, as well as a whole bunch of other productivity templates that I use by becoming a patron on Patreon. So if you want to use the template that I actually use every week to create this week plan, you can get it by supporting the show. I keep the template in Evernote, but you can transfer it to any other application that you like or just use it on paper. So those are the 3 most important journaling techniques that I find to be really helpful for my productivity. The approach that I take is very much focused on automation and trying to make this as efficient as possible. But the core techniques you can do manually on paper or in any way that you like. Keep a list of the tasks that you've completed today. It will really help motivate you. Try and do a core dump and just get everything out of your head every day, and then process that core dump so that you know that there's nothing nagging in the back of your mind that you haven't committed to your productivity system in whatever the most appropriate way is, whether that's a project that you will work on or something that you've thought about and then choose, no, this is just a someday maybe thing for the future. And lastly, do a really simple week plan where you just remind yourself of what the 3 critical, most important things are for you to work on in the week ahead, and the most important decisions to make as well. If you just do those 3 different journaling techniques, I think it will massively help your productivity. I hope you find that useful. I'd love to hear what you think.
Thank you for listening to The Voluntary Life. If you like this podcast, please show your support by becoming a patron of The Voluntary Life on Patreon. Your support will help to grow and improve the show, and you'll get access to a treasure trove of rewards, including bonus episodes. Visit thevoluntarylife.com to learn more.